Yeah.
As a prolific writer, you have the ability to transport the reader into the skins of your characters so that we know their emotions and their thoughts so much. The one that comes to my mind immediately is the father in Pet Sematary when he lost his child. It was gripping. My question is, which character was the most difficult for you to conceive and develop?
Pennywise. Yeah, Pennywise was tough. A lot of times the villains are kind of fun, but Pennywise really wasn't fun. He was a killer of children, and it made it very difficult for me to find my way into that particular character. But you know, it's strange. There's a guy who got an It t-shirt in the front. You know, my wife said, you can't call that book It, the critics will call it shit. And some of them did, but what the hell, I like it anyway. But they made a, oh, by the way, they're remaking It as a film. It's supposed to be a two-part thing. If the first one works, they'll make the second one. But it's interesting what they're doing. It's very brave. The movie will revolve solely around the kids. It'll be sort of a horror movie version of Stand By Me. And if it works, then the second movie will bring them back as adults. And it works the way that the book works. So that originally was a two-part miniseries done for cheap on ABC, but you know, Tim Curry as Pennywise scared the shit out of a lot of kids. Yeah. I hear that all the time. Pennywise the clown scared me, and I'm like, tough shit, man. He scared me too. Anyway, okay, another question, somebody else?
Hello, Mr. King.
Hey.
Thanks for being here today. My question is, today there's a lot of talk about political correctness in art in general. I would like to know how you personally deal with it.
You'll have to give it to me again, like I say, I'm half deaf. What did you say?
Today there's a lot of talk about political correctness in art.
PC, you're talking about
culture,
political
yes.
correctness?
Yes.
Well, I mean, there's nothing wrong with being respectful to all different kinds of ethnic people, and there's nothing wrong with being respectful about men, women, people who are trans and everything else. I hate it when it becomes a kind of, you know, litmus test, and it almost becomes like the, you know, the thing that the Iroquois did of the test of strength. So that everybody has to watch their words, everybody has to be extremely careful about what they say, or else all at once, you know, the shit comes down on the internet. So you have to be careful about it, but I think that most of us, if we have a sort of inbuilt respect for, you know, each other and for people that are in other walks of life, things turn out all right. I mean, there are strange things in the world, and there are strange things in America. I mean, the state of North Carolina has lost close to $1 billion about who gets to piss in what restroom, which really seems strange to me. I mean, all the bathrooms in my particular house, I don't know about yours, but we're all like unisex in my place. I don't really get that. So there are a lot of different aspects about it, and I look at all of them, and you know, the thing that, you know, sort of, it just kind of came home to me today is that the Democratic Party nominated a woman to run for president of the United States, and I think that's fabulous. I do. It's like, oh really, man? Oh, good. All at once, you know, we may be actually seeing genuine equality. Does somebody have another question? Get somebody in the balcony, yeah, up there in the cheap seats. The nosebleed.
Yeah, thank you very much. Many of your stories have certain mechanisms that inspire or invite more participation than is capable just by reading. And they've been adapted to film, and they've been adapted to television. But as far as I know, they've never been adapted to video games, and I was always curious as to why.
Well, yeah, that's true. But, you know, my own experience with video games is like Frogger, Pitfall Harry. I'm not really into the complex things. Besides, you know, a lot of the video games that have been adapted to movies don't, well, that's, you don't want me to hear about it. You don't want to hear me shit on that. So I'll just say that we've been asked a couple of times one thing and another, and in a lot of cases, we were unable to say yes. I mean, well, my theory is I want to be as inclusive as possible, and I want to say yes to people when they ask to do stuff of mine. I really do. It's true that there's been some real crappy movies made out of my stuff, but nobody sets out, nobody tries to make a bad movie. So that I want to see anybody get a chance. With the video games, a lot of times they've asked for rights to things that have already been tied up. So that's a long and not very satisfactory answer to some question.
Thank you very much.
Somebody over here, go ahead. Yeah.
So I already know that to be a writer, you do have to be a dedicated reader as well. So I guess I have a two-part question. Would you consider...
A two-part question, okay?
So, I'm cheating, I'm sorry.
This is like Final Jeopardy. Okay.
So, would you consider yourself more of a reader or a writer? And would you say it takes more dedication to be a reader or a writer?
Well, I don't consider myself more one than the other because they seem to me to be all wrapped up together. I think that reading is a part of writing. And I've said this before, that the great moment in any developing writer's history comes, for me it was a science fiction novel by a guy named Murray Leinster, who's gone to his eternal reward. There comes that moment where you say to yourself, I can do better than this. This is a piece of shit. Right? And it's the most cheerful moment where you say to yourself, there's room for me at this table. You know, and before that, I always think to myself, well, my one hope is James Michener and Herman Wouk are really old. They will die, and all of these guys will die, and I'm 18 or 19 years old, and maybe I will get a seat at the table. And then I read that novel by Murray Leinster, and I said to myself, I think that I'm better than some of these guys. That's a great moment in a writer's life. Now, what was the second part?
Does it take more dedication to be a reader or a writer?
Oh, it takes more to be a writer because you actually have to sit on your butt and write those words. And for me, you have days that are terrific when you come out of that room feeling like $1 million, and you really, you just think like, who's better than me, you know? And then there are days when you feel like I did the work, but it was like I was wearing rubber gloves on my hands and all the textures of everything that I tried to touch were muted. And then there are days when you come home feeling like you got your ass really kicked. And what you do in a case like that is push ahead. That's the only thing that you can do. You wait until the next day and then you try again. That's the only key, is persistence. Anybody else? Anybody else? I love that. This guy, he's like in the second grade. Go ahead.
Whoa, I'm talking to Stephen King. Okay, my question is simple. Do you have a preference for your multi-novel stories, a standalone book, or short stories?
Do I have a preference, did you say?
Yes.
I love all my kids, you know. The thing is, yeah, no, that's true. When I'm working on it, I always think, this is really good, and I'm really having a good time. And by the way, you know, you guys, I need to thank you for paying me for what I would do for free. You sent my kids to college, and I really appreciate that to no end. And so I love them all, and there are certain ones that stand out in my mind years later that I think about with particular affection. One of them is a story called The Body, which became a film. Thank you. And one of them is a book called The Stand. Because I remember writing that in a kind of a trance and seeing everything. You know, it was kind of like catching that mystical wave. Again, you know, I feel like Eric Clapton saying the touch was hard, and not being able to get deeper into it. But those are books that I love, and Lisa's story is a book about marriage, and I love that. And I still have a particular affection, one of those difficult relationships with a series of books called The Dark Tower. Thank you. Well, I would write something and I would say, well, I can't do this anymore. It's too hard and it's too strange, and a couple of years would go by, and then I would be called back to Midworld and I would write some more. So I love them all, but there are certain ones that I have particular affection for. A couple more questions, and I want to tell you one other thing before I go.
We've got
ahead.
a question up here. Up here in the balcony.
Hey, Steve.
Please don't fall.
I'm good. By
Okay.
the way, I made my contribution to your grandchildren's education, just so you know.
I appreciate it.
Read The Fireman, 3 days, loved it. But my
Oh, by the way, I have to tell you one thing, and hold that thought.
Okay.
Hold that thought. My shoes, man. Listen to this. My grandson bought me these shoes. He goes, Grandpa Steve, you need something cool to wear on tour. I want these shoes. When you have a grandson old enough to make fashion statements, man, that's old. Go ahead, ask the question. I'm sorry.
That's okay. My question kind of goes back to when you were discussing the remake of It. What are your feelings on all the remakes on not just your books and movies, but everything else that's coming up, like Ghostbusters, and you know, the fact that there doesn't seem to be any original material anymore?
Well, you know what? When I see a remake of something that I liked the first time, you know, I think to myself, come on, you guys, give me something new, give me something different. I mean, it's great that they want to remake It. I love that because they're going to get a movie budget, and we'll get a chance to see it on the big screen, and maybe it will work and maybe it won't. But at least it's not Children of the Corn 7. I mean, really, come on. I always wanted to see the Children of the Corn versus Leprechaun. That would have been a movie worth seeing. But, yeah, you know, and there are in particular a lot of remakes on network TV. I see a lot of stuff coming on that were movies, and all at once it's a redo all over again. And I just think there are so many people out there that are so talented and so bursting with original ideas that I would love to see that happen. Although I have to tell you that to me, the real creative, in terms of pop culture anyway, the really creative, interesting place right now is the cable television and pay-per-view and HBO and all those things. I love The Americans. By the way, the final episode is on tonight. We're missing it. But that's the wonder of you know, on demand, right? That's a great thing. Breaking Bad, things like that. So, and I'm very interested too, you know, the film version of The Dark Tower is being made now. I'm interested to see what will happen with that. I mean, a lot of these things, all of them actually, I don't get my, what would you call it, my spirit and my emotions involved. They're my kids, and I send them off, and the way that I send my children off to college, say, do the best you can, have a great time, and hope things turn out for you. And after that, you gotta just kind of let it go. Another question, somebody?
Stephen, you want
Yes.
to Mary has something.
Be loud, be proud.
Talk really loud, 'cause I can't get the mic to you guys so loud. I'll repeat it on the mic.
Okay.
Mr. King,
Yes.
after you have written and published and sent your children out into the world, did you ever have any regrets about any of your stories and wish that you could take it back and change something? Because once
Sure.
it was out there, it didn't.
There are three cases. This is a good one to end on, although if I remember, I do have one more thing I want to tell you. There were two stories that I wrote when I was, higher than Peter O'Toole on his birthday. When I wrote the Tommy Knockers, I was addicted to cocaine, and the book is about 20 times longer than it should be. In 1999, I got hit by a guy who was driving a van, and a lot of stuff got broken up on my right side, and everything is pinned together. And if they've got a chair there, and every now and then I sit down because that leg is a little bit weak. And so as a recovering person, addict and alcoholic, I woke up in the hospital and I was busted to pieces, really, and I was in a lot of pain. And when you read End of Watch, some of that pain is described in the book, because sometimes when you're in that zone, when you're writing, you can actually get back some memories that most of us can't. And the doctor said, "How do you feel?" which is the most stupid fucking question. My leg is basically powder, all my ribs are broken, I have a fractured skull. What do you mean, how do I feel? I said, "Everything hurts," and he said, "Don't worry, we have a wonderful new drug called Oxycontin, and it's going to fix you right up." And as soon as I heard the name, it's that mystical thing again, I thought, I am going to be addicted again, and I was immediately, because an addict is an addict. It did take care of the pain to a degree. And what I've always said about oxy and morphine and fentanyl and all those things is, when you're in pain, it really doesn't do much of the pain, you just don't give a shit anymore. So I wrote a book called Dreamcatcher, and it's not a very good book, but it's a book about what I was going through at that time. So when you ask, would I take it back, the answer is no. The one time that I took a book back was, I wrote a book, I started in high school, finished when I was a freshman in college. It was originally titled Getting It On. It was finally published under the Richard Bachman pseudonym as Rage. And it was about a school shooting. And then when that popped up in the lockers of a couple of kids who had actually gone on shooting rampages in their schools, I pulled it from publication, got it out of there, because I felt two ways. First of all, I think that certain books, movies, while they don't cause people to do terrible things, they can act in certain cases as an accelerant. And so I felt like it was the right thing to get rid of that one particular book. So I did. I mean, at the time that I wrote it, it wasn't an issue, and then it became one, and it seemed like the moral thing to do, rightly or wrongly. I'm still a little bit conflicted about it. Before I go, I wanted to tell you one more story, because it kind of balances off the Pittsburgh story about the bathroom. And I sometimes think of this when I think about something that John Grisham said to me. He said, "We're famous writers in a country that doesn't read." And for every one of you out there sitting there tonight, listening to me very patiently, there are probably 40, 50, 60 people whose idea of reading is you know, whatever happens to be in the bathroom when they have to use it. So, and I'm not trying to put anybody down. I'm really honest to God, I'm not doing that. I'm just saying that we're a fairly rare breed. So what has happened to me in my life is very peculiar, but I still have to remember my place in the scheme of things. And I did about 6 years ago. Now it goes back a little bit further than that, but my wife and I were in Naples, Florida. We had rented a place there for the winter, and we decided that we were going to go to the movies, and we parked in a parking lot, and we were walking to the film. And this guy says to me, hey you. I looked around because there was nobody else there, and at the curb was this Lincoln Continental with a flat tire, and the guy was dressed in like the full Florida. You know, he was wearing a white coat, and he had a polo shirt with the gator on the tip. You know. He had really nice shoes, and he had like the gold chain and everything. He's like, hey you. And I said, you got a flat tire there. He says, I'll give you $10 to change it. I looked in the Connie, and his wife was in the Connie. Only in Florida do you see this. I mean, the motor is running, the car is going full blast through the air conditioning because she's wearing a mink. So I said to the guy, do you have a spare? And he says, let's look. So, and my wife is giving me this look. I said, roll her eyes. Well, we had time. It was before the movie. And I was kind of enjoying myself. So the guy has got the jack, and he's got the tire, the spare. And so I said, is your wife going to get out of the car? Because I'm going to jack it up. And he went and he talked to her through the window, and she's like, I'm going to get out there, it's hot, I'm wearing my mink and all that. He said, she's not getting out of the car. I said, well, then it'll cost you $15. He said, okay. So I jacked up the car. You know, I was dressed for the movie. I wasn't in full Florida. I was wearing what I'm wearing now, you know, harness and boots and a denim jacket or whatever. So I jacked up the car, and I pulled off the flap, and I put on the spare, and I tightened up the lug nuts, and I put on the hubcap, and I threw the tire in the back, and slammed the hood, and all the time I'm doing this, swear to God, he's going like this. Because they had some place to go. And I'm like, yes, a boss, yes, a boss. I was going as fast as I can. So I get it done, and I slam down the thing, and he goes in the car and opens the glove compartment to get some money or something like that. And my wife pulls me aside and says, Steve, you're not really going to take that money. I'm like, fucking right. What I said to her was, that's the first honest work I've done in 20 years. Thank you all very much.